Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to gather a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world, one character at a time. And it all starts with one thing, a deep understanding of human motivation, why people do what they do, and the forces that drive them. To gain that understanding, I am mining the intersection of psychology, theology, and philosophy to make you a better writer. This is episode 119, Zettelkasten, when the path of discussion is a spiral. Well, when is the path of discussion a spiral? It's when a topic is hit upon and then revisited, and then revisited, and with each revisit, the spiral gets larger. It's kind of like the cover of a book that my friends Ken Caputo and Stephanie Roy just recently published called The Spiral. You can see the shape of the spiral right there. Well, how are you going to Zettelkasten something that's in the shape of a spiral? And we're going to see an example of this, a very simple example, just 2 layers, in the work that we've undertaken for ourselves, because we've decided that what we're going to do is Zettelkasten as a baseline, my new book, Writing with Emotion. And we're going to see tonight a spot where there's a spiral, where we hit a topic lightly and then come back and hit it more deeply. And I'll show you how I would suggest handling that in a Zettelkasten. And I'm also going to show you a reference card and a reflection card. So a couple of things that turn out to be related. So here we are. We left off last time after a break to tour my Zettelkasten. We had created a card for B1B, which introduced a discussion that Peterson and Seligman in their book Character Strengths and Virtues were having some challenges around wanting to have a taxonomy for their character strengths and virtues and not quite being able to come out with that and having some frustrations. And they tended to come out of this card 4B1B, and we had a 4B1B1 and a 4B1B2, and we had not yet created the directory card the last time we were together, and I promised you that I would create that one. So let's take kind of a remedial here, but it's also an introduction to where we're going today. So here we are with 4B1B's directory card. And here first of all, is the missing taxonomy, which they were bemoaning the fact that not having a taxonomy, they felt that their findings might come out trite or unconvincing. And my reflection on that was that perhaps one of the challenges was that they were comparing their work to the DSM, which is involved with mental illness, and perhaps it would be more constructive to follow us fiction writers. Fiction writers might deal with mental illness. It would be either a genre or a special case in a story, but typically, if you're a fiction writer, we know all about heroes and villains. We know all about good guys and bad guys. And if you ask us, we'll tell you that the opposite of a virtue is a vice. And the story is very much involved in the good versus the evil quarreling in many cases. But today, this morning, it dawned on me that what we have as fiction writers when we're dealing with the whole character trait, with the triad of emotions and not just the character strength, which is the victory side, we actually have a bigger scope of vision that might include exactly what they need to complete their desired taxonomy. So let's take a moment to take a look at this card, and then I'll show you why it's going to widen into a spiral here. Okay, Okay, first of all, there's their card 4B1B1 and 4B1B2 that we already saw. And here's the new card 4B1B3. And here you can see the full triad of emotions, the what we call the loss state, the struggle, and the victory state. And because we have all three of those in sight, we can easily determine and notice and become aware of how central the struggle is, as it provides the organizing factor for the character traits. Well, since the character strengths are just the victory side of the character traits, perhaps if they were to widen their vision a little bit wider to at least include the struggle, they would have been able to uncover the taxonomy that they so deeply longed for. And they go, it covers several pages where they bemoan the lack of a taxonomy. So, what is the character trait that takes a wide look around and takes in all of the factors of the circumstances? Why, that's simply the character trait of circumspection. And, which is rather interesting because it's a character trait, so presumably the victory state of circumspection would be one of their character strengths, and yet they did not apply it to their circumstance, which is a little bit ironic. Okay, so we're getting very close to our spiral, so let me first show you the couple of things, which is the reason why I brought this card to your attention. I like to point out the notation, my source notation on this card. This is a personal reflection, so I've labeled it R.PR, which in my world stands for personal reflection, and then I've included a date reference, year, month, day. And then I've also indicated what I was reflecting about, the Peterson and Seligman from their book on page 9. So I have both of those references there. And the other thing in red that I want to point out is that notation. It's a square bracket, arrow, plus, and that just means see also. And what I've included is a card that you haven't seen yet. So I'm kind of cheating. Okay, I admit it, I'm cheating. You haven't seen card 4D3A-1 yet. It's on circumspection. So we haven't covered it yet, so we're going to spiral out to it. And I'll show you where the spiral comes in right now. Okay. When we launched into the character profile diagram, which is that whole 4B area that we've just been working in, the very next page in that area, if you have my book, that is on page 12 and 13 of that book. That's what I've kind of put up here in the picture, what those pages look like. That's page 12 and 13 if you have the book. Begins the discussion of the character traits, the character trait groups. It brings up some background and some pretty good descriptive material on each of the 4 character trait groups. So this is right in the page-wise, it's right in the middle of the second area in the table of contents, which we called 4B. But it discusses material that's in the 4th part that we call 4D. So where are we going to put the cards that need to be created? In fact, that's the very next pages of the book. If we're going through them sequentially, we're going to be right at these 2 pages and say, where are we going to put them in the Zettelkasten? We are right now at the middle of this spiral where we're in part B near the center, but we're discussing a topic that ranges out to to the edge of the spiral. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're arranging from something that's in the middle, and we're arranging it out to the edge. So how are we going to number these? And my suggestion to you is that this is a big reason why you do inspectional reading. Now we're back to Mortimer Adler again, how to read a book. Inspectional reading is where you survey the book in advance and you get a feeling for how the author has organized the book. Because very, very often, especially in a book that has something to teach, you will see that spiral structure because the author will introduce topics lightly and in an introductory fashion that'll come around and hit more deeply in later parts of the book. And maybe towards the end, philosophically, and come back around to them again. Because you have done an inspectional reading and you've already seen that structure, you can make an advanced plan as to how you want to handle that material in your Zettelkasten. This is our foundational book, so this book that we're doing, my book, is going to provide the structure for our Zettelkasten, and so therefore, my suggestion, and what you're going to see happen in our discussion here, is I'm going to use the 4D numbering area, and I'm going to number that central spiral as though it were part of a larger spiral, because it's the introductory material to that material. So because we as humans need to consume an introductory amount of material before we try to, eat the whole plate full, so therefore it needs to come early in the book so we can start working with the material before we've learned it all. But when we have the Zettelkasten, we've already visited it all by the time the Zettelkasten is complete. So I'm going to go with the 4D numbering. And so when we hit these pages, even though they're in the second section of the book, which you'd think would be 4B, they're all going to get the numbers in 4D so that their information can remain together. And that is how you Zettelkasten material that takes a spiral path. I hope you enjoyed it, and you'll see this play out soon. Okay, bye-bye.